Good evening. My name is Kathy McCormick. I'm board president of Pratt Memorial Library in Old Greenwich. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's program with Caryn Davis on her newly released book, Connecticut Waters, Celebrating Our Coastline and Waterways. I want to also thank the members of the Pratt Memorial Library Association, whose generous contributions make programs like these possible. If you're not a member, please consider joining us. Details can be found on our website, prattmemoriallibrary.org, and we'll put that in our chat. I also want to thank Jess Reed of Greenwich Point Marketing, who helps Pratt with all its virtual programs and helps us keep connected to the community. So thank you to Jess. And copies of Connecticut Waters, as well as Caryn's other book, are available for checkout at prattmemoriallibrary.org and also at Greenwich's independent bookstore, Diane's Books. We'll put the link to both of those in the chat. This program will be recorded, and we'll send a link with a follow-up email. And now it's my honor to introduce Lyme, Connecticut resident Caryn Davis, who is a journalist and award-winning photographer specializing in architecture, garden, boat, and travel photography. Her images and articles have been featured in over 60 publications, including the New York Times, Town and Country, Lonely Planet, Condé Nast Traveler, and many others. Caryn visited Pratt Library in December 2017 to discuss her first book, Connecticut Christmas, celebrating the holiday in classic New England style. We are so happy to have you back. Thank you so much for joining us, Caryn.
Thank you, Kathy. And thank you everyone for coming. I'm just going to share my screen and stop my video. Okay, can you see my video here? I mean, sorry, can you see my slide, my first slide, Kathy?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. And you can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, all right. So, so here we go. This is my book, Connecticut Waters, and this is a photograph of the Mystic Whaler. And this is her Captain John Edgington. The Mystic Whaler is a reproduction of a 19th century coasting schooner. And she's just an absolutely beautiful boat. John, I met many, many years ago when I worked at Mystic Seaport Museum, and he takes people out on day trips. He also has lobster evening sails, and he does 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 day cruises. I don't know if he's still doing it with COVID, but at one time he was doing more educational boating and going down to Baltimore. And if you do take the boat and you want to learn about sail training or try your hand at hoisting the sails, you can definitely do that, or you could just sit and relax. When I started this book, it was very important to me to not just show boats and yachting, but traditions, but also ways that people could get out on the water who didn't own a boat and maybe didn't even want to own a boat, or people who wanted to enjoy the water from land. So that chapter that John is in is on ways to get out on the water for people, like I just said, who don't have ways to do that. Then there's a section on wooden boats. I felt it was very important to highlight wooden boats because to me, they're works of art. This is Symphony. I sailed on her to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland in the 80s, I believe, or early 90s, I should say. And it was owned by a gentleman named Fred Holth, and Fred passed away, but he was always looking for crew to take people to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, because he would go every single summer. And this is his son, Tor, who now has the boat. It was built in 1963 for the King of Sweden. And there's a story that the person who owned the boat after the king and before Fred, he was given an ultimatum by his wife to get rid of the mistress or keep the boat. And he kept the boat. He sold the boat. And these are Tor's children, and it's really great when they're on board because they're not using their iPhones. They're engaged in the art of sailing. They're learning. And Tor was saying he doesn't know if they're going to keep the boat up. It's a large expense. It takes a lot of time, and he doesn't know the level of interest yet. And that's why I really wanted to show wooden boats, because the interest is waning, because the upkeep and maintenance is time consuming and also costs a lot of money. But hopefully we're going to find people to continue this tradition. This is a group out of Pilots Point Marina, which I think they just sold it, so it's called Safe Harbor Marina. They're out of Westbrook, and this is a group called Sail Access Connecticut. It's a nonprofit organization, and they take people out with very serious disabilities, both mental and physical, but they have a chairlift that they can put people in, so it gets them from the dock and puts them into the boat. And it really changes the way these people interact, and their level of health, their heart rate, all the things that you hear about why we go sailing, and how all the good things it does for you, relaxing you. Plus they also can form a community with each other. This is Tom Townsend, and he is a boat builder out of Mystic. Mystic still has a lot of wooden boat builders. And I just, so there's a chapter on boat builders as well. And I just wanted to show you, in case some people don't know, how you get the boat from his shop where he, restored it, to where he's going to launch it. So he just put it on a trailer, as you can see. And then he took it to the shipyard, and here she is. Excuse me, my cat is I just have to grab her. Come here. She's about to take down everything. Okay, sorry about that. So this is a beautiful lobster boat that he restored, and it's just a joy for the person who now owns it, and he just uses it for recreation. This is a boat builder named David Snederker, and he's out of Mystic as well, and he restores beautiful wooden boats again. So this is still the chapter on boat builders, and I wanted to show you how a mast gets steps. So they redid this mast, and they're about to put it into that boat on the right. That boat's called Black Magic. It's quite a feat. It's a very tall mast, and it's amazing how they do this. Then this is Quentin Snederker. He is in charge of the shipyard at Mystic Seaport Museum. This is a chapter on boat builders. They're also in there under museums and aquariums. Part of my goal with this book was to talk about the waterways and how we use them for industry and recreation and education, and how it shaped our culture as a state. So this is how I decided what material is going to go into the book. This is the Charles W. Morgan. She is the last wooden whale ship in existence. The museum would not be where it is today was it not for this vessel, because she ended her career in whaling in 1921. She was built in New Bedford, and she laid in the mud until 1941. And she was brought to the museum. She had been on the state of Colonel Green. She was brought to the museum, and she became a tourist attraction, so much so, in fact, that the museum was able to grow. This is a state-of-the-art lift used to haul these huge vessels out of the water. If you can imagine it, it's a hydraulic lift. That part that the boat is sitting on actually goes into the water. You just pull the boat in, and then you raise it. And because of this, they have been able to restore vessels from all over the United States, including the Mayflower, which they did recently. They have the tools, they have the knowledge, and they have the equipment, and they have the manpower. Here they're bending, this just came out, they bended this piece of wood, and they're fitting it to the frame. And this is what she looked like when she was sailing. This was actually during sea trials. And then they took her on a goodwill voyage up and down the coast. And people were allowed to board in the different ports and learn about the ship. This is the Annie Laurie. I love this boat. I've been on it several times. She is a commuter yacht. And back in the days that she was active, she was owned by a wealthy businessman who, and this is not uncommon, they would take her during the summer, they would take these commuter yachts from their home in Long Island to Wall Street in Manhattan, and they would arrive in their pajamas and they would shower, they would read the newspaper, they would have their breakfast, and then they'd get off at the city, do their work, and come back. And there is a pipe organ on this boat that does play. They do use it because the owner is affiliated with Austin Organs in Connecticut, the oldest organ factory in the state. And this is the inside of Annie Laurie. And Annie has always had a cat on board. This is called OC Orange Cat. The last cat that I knew was Whiskey, who disappeared during the Antique and Classic Boat Parade at Mystic. Then there's a chapter on working watercraft, and this is the oldest, continuous running ferry in the state. This is the Chester Hadlime Ferry. It's a 5-minute ride from Chester to Hadlime across the river. It goes by Gillette's Castle as well. And then this is the Rocky Hill Ferry. And it always needs a pilot boat to take it across the river as well. This shot was a fluke shot. I was actually on the ferry going to do an assignment for a boating magazine that I used to work for that's now defunct. And this ship, this submarine was right there in the water. I thought it was just fascinating. And there's a pilot boat in the background bringing it in. I called the Navy to see if I could use the shot, and they said, sure. And then we have a lot of ferries. We have ferries that go to Fisher's Island, Block Island, and Long Island. And this is the Fisher's Island Ferry. The Coast Guard Eagle, there's a chapter on education, and the Coast Guard Eagle is in there, as well as the Coast Guard itself. Because when you think about what we have in this state that's really unique, we have a lot of things related to the water that other people don't. We have submarines being built here. We have a shad industry. We have the Coast Guard. So I love this shot because with the person in the middle, you can really see how big this ship is. And she had been away from port for about 4 years. And I was very lucky when I was shooting the book that she just happened to come back home that year, or she wouldn't have been in the book. And I couldn't really coordinate a shoot of her under sail, which I really wanted to get, because they have to drop anchor way out and they don't know what the wind conditions are or when they're really going to be able to get in. But they did lend me a chase boat and I was able to get some shots. And again, working watercraft, these are pilot boats and tugboats. We also have a oyster industry, Norm Bloom and Sons out of Norwalk and Copp's Island oysters. They are 3rd generation oyster fishermen. They're growing them now. They raise them from teeny weeny little shells, and they keep up the tradition. More on the fishing industry. This is Danny Russell. He's potentially the last shad fisherman on the Connecticut River. He's been doing it for 35 years. The year I photographed him, he said there was hardly any shad. And every year he provides the Essex Rotary with shad. And this year the year that I was photographing the book, he was actually short shad for the first time ever. And, he came in at 5 in the morning, which meant I had to be ready for him at 4:30 in the morning. But so be it. And I just wanted to show you our industry here. This is Spencer's Shad Shack, which was once the place you would go for shad. It was a vibrant industry, but now it's no longer. And I'm told, I don't know if this is accurate, but shad has a lot of bones, and it's a well-guarded secret how to debone them. And usually the women do that part. So here's Danny cleaning his shad, supplying it to the Essex Rotary, which nails it onto planks and serves it. And this is a big fundraiser for them. This is at the Connecticut River Museum in Essex. We also have the last commercial fishing fleet in the state in Stonington, Connecticut. So they're in the book as well. And then there's a chapter on salty dogs. This is, I'm spacing on his name, Steve Jones. He is a very salty dog. He is an author, and he also was a sailor in his day. And he has a shipyard, West Mystic Shipyard, where he collects parts to boats. So in there, it's all wooden parts. So there may be an old wheelhouse sitting in his yard, or whatever pieces people didn't want and were going to discard live in his yard. Many of you probably know Dr. Robert Ballard. He's a neighbor, and he discovered the Titanic, among many, many other things. So again, you know, he's unique to Connecticut because there's only one Dr. Ballard. Tom Whidden, he is CEO of North Sails. This is something else unique to Connecticut. We have the largest sailmaker in the world headquartered in Milford. They make all kinds of sails for recreation, industry, racing. Tom is a 3-time America's Cup racer. He sailed with Dennis Conner as tactician, and he's just a great man. He's been inducted into the Sailing Hall of Fame, and he gave me a great endorsement for my book. This is the Alexander Racing Feed. So this is the section on races and rendezvous. Alexander's Lake is in the northeast corner. It's the only 110 fishing fleet in the state, and these were designed by Ray Hunt, who designed the Boston Whaler. And this is another thing unique to Connecticut, the Yale Harvard Regatta. It's been going on since 1859 on the Thames River. And this year that I was there, Yale won, which was great. In celebration of wooden boats out of Noank, there's a large wooden boat community of enthusiasts and aficionados, and they get together every year, and they have the Noank Wooden Boat Invitational, which is just a fun event, and they give out cookies. And this is how they hand out the chocolate chip cookies before the race. And these are some of the beautiful boats. There's classic wooden yachts in here designed, for example, by Nathaniel Harrisoff and Olin Stevens, who were two amazing designers in their heyday and revolutionized yachting as we know it, and built many America's Cup defenders between two of them, going back to people who sailed on them, such as Sir Thomas Lipton, the founder of Lipton Tea, and Vanderbilt. And this is the Antique and Classic Boat Parade out of Mystic Seaport, and people love this parade, and they get all decked out and show off their beautiful boats. There's a chapter on lighthouses and islands. This is 5 Mile Point Light out of New Haven. These are the Thimble Islands. This is my favorite island in the Thimble Islands because basically you can see through the house. It's attached to nothing but the rock. This is Morgan Point Light, which is now a private house out of Noank. And this is Mouse Island, also out of Noank. You can see it in the distance here near that sailboat. And there's 3 little houses like this. They have no electricity, no running water. They're only used in the summertime. And I believe they can't be sold, only be handed to family members. This is a model maker named Roger Hambidge, and he was responsible for restoring the Morgan. His knowledge was invaluable. The Morgan could not have been restored without him. That was a sailing ship Mystic restored, the whale ship I showed you earlier. And in building this size models, they're exactly the same as a larger ship. And he is so exacting that if you open up a hatchway, you can look down into the galley, and he's even put appropriate things in there like seating and food and people. This is Steve Cryan. So there's a section on called Nautical Arts in the book, and that is what we just saw. Steve Cryan illustrates steamships and trains at very realistic. He also has an amazing show that's going on right now at the Connecticut River Museum. It's a train show, and he's made a lot of the models and buildings himself. And here's a closer view of an older steamship he drew. This steamship is on the wall at the Griswold Inn in Essex, and Jeff Paul of the Paul Foundation has been slowly restoring all the artwork on the walls at the Gris, because it's a bar that's pre-Revolutionary War and an inn. And as you can imagine, over the years, there's a lot of cigarette smoke on these, even though we don't smoke in bars anymore, and oil and grease and that sort of thing. But it's a priceless collection. It's the largest collection in the country devoted to steamships on Long Island Sound and the Connecticut River. This is a gentleman, we're still in nautical arts, out of Deep River, who has a business. It's called Nautical Arts Workshops, and you can take one day, weekend, or week-long courses and make things that are related to the nautical arts, like a sea chest, for example. And this is sail making at North Sails in Milford. We also have a lot of snack shacks. I could have done an entire book on snack shacks. This is the Blue Oar on the Connecticut River. You can get there by boat. Not all of them are accessible by boat. This is the Guildford Lobster Pound. I love this one. They just serve lobster rolls, clam chowder, and hot dogs, and they do them all very well. And this is, you can dock here on the other side. This is the harbor in Noank, and that is Ford's Lobster in the distance. And they will deliver to your boat, or you can eat at the dock. They have tables and chairs, and it's a beautiful setting. This is just an untouched, undeveloped harbor, meaning there's not a lot of, there's no industry really, and there's only 3 restaurants. Scott's Lobster in New London, you can tie up there as well. And sometimes they have music. This is the Maggie P. She's a houseboat. So there's a section on houseboats and boathouses. And she washed up on the shore of Fenwick. If anyone's been to Fenwick in Old Saybrook, it's where Katharine Hepburn used to live. There's huge mansions there. This got grandfathered in. She came up in a storm, and then she stayed on land like this. And she was purchased by a family that is now 4 generations owning the Maggie P. And the woman who purchased her, she is the great grandmother of the family. And she, a salesman was going by and said, you know, do you want any insurance, boat insurance, flood insurance? She said, hurricane insurance, excuse me. And she said, yeah, I'll buy some. It was $1 it cost her. And the 38 hurricane came right after that. But the Maggie P survived. And the inside looks like a boat, as it should. This is a boat house that was intentionally built for the owners to look like a boat. And they have parties on the decks. Then we have a chapter on maritime festivals. This is the Maritime, Connecticut Heritage Maritime Festival out of New London. That's the Columbia. That's a Navy ship. The ferry just happened to be going by. This was really early in the morning as well. And you can take a water taxi between City Pier and Fort Trumbull, where the boats are, and you can see them and board them. And these are just some early morning beauty shots I got. I love taking photos of lines and repetitive shapes and patterns, and the light was beautiful this morning. Another festival we have out of Mystic is the Sea Music Festival. People actually come all over the world for this festival to share shanty music and learn shanty music and learn about the instruments and the stories behind the music. This is the blessing of the fleet out of Stonington, Connecticut. And every year before the fleet goes out for the season, a priest blesses them and they throw reefs in the water to remember the people that died at sea. I showed you an image before of the fishing fleet. Then we have, of course, the Mystic Aquarium. And while I was there for quite a while. I was fascinated by the belugas. And every time a child came up, they were fascinated with the child. And this beluga is looking at this child. They did it over and over again. They seem to really enjoy the children and interact with them. This is the Norwalk Aquarium. Mystic does not have sharks, Norwalk does. And it's a much larger aquarium. They both have their merits. This, of course, is Mystic Seaport, a maritime museum. This is the Connecticut River Museum. It is the only museum in the 400 miles of the Connecticut River, which stretches from Old Saybrook at its mouth up to the Canadian border. And one of the reasons that we have no industry at the mouth of the river is because of its ever-changing silt. The sand is always shifting, so they could not dredge it. So they couldn't put any industry at its mouth. It really did save it. This is a organization, again, now we're going back to maritime education, called the Maritime Education Network. It takes inner city kids out to teach them about boats, teach them how to drive a boat, what's in the water, and teaches them how to read charts, everything that has to do with the water, which is great for them. It's my favorite boat. This is the schooner Brilliant. She's out of Mystic, Connecticut at the museum. And she was built by Olin Stevens, one of the designers that I spoke about earlier, who designed America's Cup yachts. This was built for Barnum, and Walter Barnum, not PT. And he told Olin that he wanted it fast enough for racing, but sturdy enough to roll over in a hurricane. And he definitely delivered that. And they take people out for educational sailing trips to teach them the art of sailing and seamanship for an afternoon or a week-long periods for both adults and children. She's just a beautiful boat. This is the Amistad out of New Haven. She's another educational vessel teaching people and school children the story of the Amistad. The Amistad was not technically a slave ship. What happened when she got into a port was the Black people on board were taken into slavery. And that is why when the trial happened in London, they were able to be freed because they were never technically slaves to begin with. It's a goodwill vessel, and it's a beautiful boat. This is the River Quest, and they lead all kinds of cruises. They even go out in the winter for eagle watches on the Connecticut River. This is down in Lyme near the Baldwin Bridge in Old Saybrook. And this is where the swallows converge starting in the end of August, going into September. They do this every year for 1 month, and they arrive here at dusk. They make a funnel. They come by the thousands, and precisely at dusk, they drop into the reeds to roost for the night. I don't know how they organize it among themselves or how they do it or how they communicate, but they do. This is Sheffield Island, and the Norwalk Seaport Association will take you out there via ferry. And you can go and have a proper clam bake on the island. It's a lot of fun. The mosquitoes that year were horrific. So bring bug spray if you do go, but you can also tour the lighthouse. This is just a fun event. So this is the chapter on fun in the sun and fun things to do on the water, like we just saw. And this is a witch paddle that happens every year in Mystic. People get dressed up, hang out on the Mystic River. The gentleman you see in the yellow, his name is Wick Griswold. He is also an author and a professor. He's written books about the Connecticut River and boat building in Connecticut. And this is his group. It's called the Connecticut River Drifting Society, and anyone's welcome. And they just go out and they drift. More fun in the sun. This is a duck race in Naugatuck. Chester, Connecticut also has a duck race. I just want to say they do catch the ducks. There's a net downriver a little bit, so they're not leaving the ducks. This was a great event. This was every year the students and staff from UConn come down to Avery Point. That's also a UConn campus. And they end their school year with this cardboard boat race. And these kids were having so much fun. This kid on the left, he just didn't even care that his boat barely got anywhere. We have tiki boats that have cropped up. If you want to go listen to tiki music and go out in Stamford Harbor. There's also one out of Noank, Connecticut. You can bring a bunch of friends. So this is the Connecticut River. It's hailed as one of the last great places on earth. I tried really hard to capture the majesty of this river. So I went up in an airplane, and it's so large. It just, I don't really feel like I caught it. So then I started getting smaller glimpses of it. And this is the Becky Thatcher. She goes up and down the Connecticut River. She's part of the Essex steam train and river boat. So if you take the steam train out of Essex, it will let you off at a dock in Deep River, and you board the boat for an 1.5-hour cruise up and down the river. Still the Connecticut River, still trying to capture the beauty of it. And Essex Harbor, Connecticut River. So we're really lucky where we live in this, in Connecticut, because we have so many beautiful waterways here and places that we can enjoy. This is Norwalk. This is New London. This is Clinton Harbor. This is my backyard. Lucky me. I'm not being facetious. I'm awed every day. I get sunsets like this every night. This is Rogers Lake. It's a very quiet part of the lake and just beautiful. And this is Rogers Lake again, different night. So now I'll just tell you a little bit about my first book. This is called, as you can see, Connecticut Christmas, Celebrating the Holiday in Classic New England Style. So when I started this book, my publisher said to me, you know, you have to think of a cover shot. And it was my first book. I had no idea. I'm like, well, what am I going to get? And I looked all over the state. And it's ironic that this was taken pretty much in my own backyard in Essex. And I saw this, and I didn't go back for some reason, because I didn't think of it as the cover and time was running out. So I went here after January 1st, praying that that boat would still have a light on it and that Christmas tree would still be lit up. And it was. And the following year, there was scaffolding on the church because they were repairing the steeple. So this was, again, fortunate. And this is the Essex steam train, which I talked about a little bit earlier. This book shows you all the things to do during the holiday season, but also talks about the holiday season. We're really Christmas crazy in this state, that it's just endless. It reads like a travel guide in some ways, for people who don't even live here because there's so much to see and do. But it also talks about the decoration, the spirit of Christmas, the community behind it, etc. Kids love this train ride. At Christmas time, they have something called the North Pole Express, and it's basically an interactive play where there's actors on board all dressed up, and they move from car to car telling the story of Christmas. There's a lot of light festivals in Connecticut. There's only one that has silver lights, white lights, as opposed to colored lights. But we have one here. This is a Silver Lights Festival in Maritime. And we also have them in New Haven and Hartford and Ivoryton. This is the Christmas, the pink sleigh in Westbrook, Connecticut. She has 50,000 items in this old barn, and every year she sells them out, and every year she redecorates the shop. So every year, if you were to go, you would see completely different things. Then, of course, we have the we have two lighted boat parades in the state. One is out of Essex, and this one is out of Mystic. This is much larger and has more boats. Then there's a section on different museums that decorate. This is Gillette's Castle. Every year they decorate, and they're open just on weekends for that short season. This is the Wadsworth Athenaeum in Hartford, and it's the Festival of the Trees, and different businesses decorate their trees, and then they get auctioned off to charity. They get auctioned off and the proceeds go to charity. This is the Lockwood Matthews Mansion Museum in Norwalk. It's a beautiful old mansion, and they've been restoring it for many years. And every year designers come and they decorate, and they open to the public. They're open year round too, but they're slowly restoring it. This was actually in Sandy Hook, Newtown. It's just a little laundromat. I happened to pop in there and I saw this scene. This is the part of the train set that I was talking about earlier that Steve Cryan does at the Connecticut River Museum. You can really see the level of detail. This is the Hillstone Museum. I was actually just there a few days ago. It's a beautiful museum. It's belonged to the Pope family. Theodate Pope was one of 5 female architects in the country. She did not go to school. There were no schools for her. Her father was an avid collector of art, particularly Impressionism. They have 3 or 4 Monets in there that you can get close up to. There's no barriers. They have some Dalís and Mary Cassatt, just an amazing place. And when Theodate, the daughter who designed this house for her parents, left it to Farmington, she did so with the stipulation that nothing could be moved or changed, and nothing could be removed either. Then we have lantern light tours at Mystic Seaport. They turn all the lights off. It's pitch black, and they basically do an interactive play from building to building. So this is a town green in New Haven. This is an 18th century Neapolitan creche that has been restored by members of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It lives in Bethlehem at the Abbey of Regina St. Laudis, and it's in a barn that has the temperature necessary to make sure nothing happens to it. And it's remarkable. It's a remarkable piece. If you want, you could rent a llama and take it for a walk through Country Quilt Llamas and Cornwall, Connecticut. And this is Ivoryton. This is my favorite light show, only because it's a very small space and it has a lot of lights. They keep adding it to it. This is the Boar's Head Festival. It actually happens in January and it's beautiful. This is at the Asylum Hill Church where Mark Twain was a patron at one time. And you sit in the audience, as you can see, and all this activity, this entire reenactment happens up and down the aisles. There's dancers and balancers and people bringing animals up and down the aisle. You can see there's a camel on the right. Sometimes there's horses, and there's great music and pipe organs, and it's just a feast for the eyes. And I think that's the last slide. It is. So I'm going to start my video and see if anybody has any questions. Okay. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Caryn? Caryn, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
You showed one tiki boat in Stamford.
Mhm.
Is there anything from Greenwich that didn't make it into the book, or?
There is some things on Greenwich, not in the Waterways book, but the Christmas book has McArdles in there. And there's something else, but I don't actually recall it at this time.
So nothing from Greenwich in the Waterways.
No, so
You're-
sorry.
Nothing that caught your eye. You'll have to come back.
Yeah, I will. It wasn't that easy to find places, believe it or not. You know, it seems like there's a heavy concentration of Mystic just because there's a lot going on down there.
What about the Soundwater schooner? Have you ever?
Well, yeah, no, I wanted to do that, but then I already had too many in the education. And at the time, Amistad was down your way. So that's what happened with that. They
Okay.
limit my pages.
Anyone else have any questions that they want to put in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask Caryn directly?
But I do have a new book that's coming out in 2023, and there will be Greenwich things in there. I can't say what it's about, but there's a lot of Greenwich in there.
Okay.
So I'll make up for it.
Okay. And we'll make sure, hopefully at that time, we'll be back to doing programs in person.
That would be
great. We can do it in person. Does anyone else have any questions for Caryn? Okay, I'm going to show everyone a copy of your book, and it makes a fantastic holiday gift. I'll have to say, both the Christmas book and this book. And Caryn, we talked about it earlier. If someone wanted to get a signed book, can you tell everyone how they can do that?
Sure. They can just contact me through my website or call me, and I'll send them one and personalize it or just sign it.
Okay, great. And your website is carynbdavis.com. We just put it in the chat for anyone who can. And also for any Indian Harbor Yacht Club members here with us tonight, Caryn will be speaking in person. Did you say it's November 17th?
Yes, at 6 o'clock.
And
I think there's a dinner and then the talk. And
where in Norwalk are you speaking?
I'm speaking to the Power Squadron at Norwalk Yacht Club on the 14th of November.
And to stay up to date on all your events, visit your website and social media, Instagram, Caryn B. Davis.
Thank you.
Okay, does anyone last call for questions before we let Caryn go? It's a shy group. Okay, well, I think everyone knows how they can contact you directly. And I want to thank you so much for coming virtually. And I hope that for your next book, we can have you back in the library in person.
And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Good night. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye-bye.